Hey y'all, we are here to review the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Potomac, and so we got a pretty long. You know how they do like a flashback of what happened on the last episode. This one was kind of long, but not like in a bad way. It just kind of was spelling out a lot, just putting all the pieces together. Way more interesting than the backlash of it all, but whatever, or the aftermath of it all, I guess I'll say. So we come in for the aftermath, and they're still having this conversation in the car. Robyn's big thing is, which was an interesting thing to say. She's upset and crying, and she feels like, y'all can say whatever you want about the women and that type of stuff, the cheating allegations, but don't talk about his job. And that just leads me to believe that Robyn already has some type of guilt of her own as it pertains to Juan losing his job, because that's the only reason that this would affect her in this way. So then that kind of makes me think, like, so why get so upset for somebody to say something that has merit? Because you obviously feel some type of way about it for a reason. But it is Robyn that we're speaking about. And this is where I think the tables started to turn, because Wendy and Candiace, of all people, are having sympathy for Robyn, who they shouldn't. But, it gets to a point where Robyn is being, the ladies are trying to like rub her back and like, it's okay, girl, blah blah blah, but she's being kind of like an asshole. Like, she's literally saying, she had already said in the last episode, like, I didn't do nothing to y'all, and now she's going even further. And so, Wendy's trying to level with her. She's like, well, girl, we know everything about being maligned. Like, we listen, our families have been maligned too. Like, come on now, this is where the tables are turning. Like, baby, come on now, you playing that victim card a little too heavy. And then Robyn kind of, like I said, is putting herself in this situation, because she's like, well, Juan has never said anything negative about you ladies. I don't know what the context was for her to say that. I guess she was trying to say, like, why y'all coming for Juan, I guess, because he's never done nothing to y'all. And to me, if I was Candiace, I would take that as a dig, which she obviously did, because Robyn also was kind of like, well, I don't know if Robyn was alluding to it, but there were flashbacks to what Chris said about Giselle, I guess. But they went to like this podcast that Chris did, and Chris never said anything like malicious about Giselle. So I don't know where that was coming from. But Candiace is giving her 2 cents, as I would as well. And she's just like, well, Chris has only defended himself against the women. Like, he hasn't said anything crazy either, which is true. And Wendy was saying as well, she's like, my husband has never said anything about the ladies. So it's like, it was just giving like, what are you talking about, Robyn? Like, when somebody says y'all in the group, you like, who is y'all? It was giving that, like, who are you addressing that to? But, now that the tables have turned, Candiace is holding her accountable, and she's like, well, Robyn, you have to admit, girl, that you were complicit in what was happening last season. Like, when your good Judy, Giselle, was doing all the messy stuff that she was doing, as always, you were being complicit in her being a mess. And Robyn shuts it down from there, not trying to take any accountability. She's like, well, if that's how you feel, then we don't need to have a conversation. And it's like, okay, well, girl, let's not. At the end of the day, like, because a point was made, and that's the most frustrating thing about a lot of the women on this show. Like, once a point is made, the girls don't want to chat. Like, oh, now you don't have nothing to say because a point was made. That's so frustrating. They get inside. Candiace is still kind of upset, and Robyn is still Robyn's still really upset. Her hair is still all like disheveled. It's been like that all season. And did y'all notice it was like that in her confessional look too? I'm just like, what the hell is going on? But she's still crying at the table. Giselle's like, what happened? Because she wasn't in the car. Any chance that we get away from Giselle is a good chance. But she's trying to catch up on what was happening. Robyn starts crying even more. Candiace is crying even more. The thing, so agitated again. I don't know why it was such a question of why is Candiace crying. I feel like people ask a lot of, and I don't say this to be offensive, but I feel like that's a dumb question. Like, she's obviously crying because Robyn was crying. Like, she was having empathy for her, but also feeling the emotions of somebody that she was supposed to be friends with, and it's gone to a very dark place. And Candiace is an emotional person, and everything makes her cry. So, of course, if she's feeling overwhelmed with emotion, when people feel overwhelmed with emotion, they do what they do when they feel emotional. When Candiace feels emotional, she cries. So I'm not understanding why there was any question as to that math problem. It was very obvious. So, but Candiace is crying, and I just had so many questions this episode. Like, it were just so many things stated on the show and both on Twitter that just had me so very confused. But so Mia says, for one of the first things, Mia says, "Oh well, Candiace was making it about herself," and I love that Wendy clapped back like, "Girl, don't say that because you were just in the car and you weren't giving any of that energy." First of all, Mia wasn't giving anything in the car. Wendy and Candiace were the one that really were trying to level with Robyn and help her out before Robyn started sounding like an idiot and they had to correct her. Mia's just sitting there making faces and looking dumb like she always does. And now you're coming to the group and you want to throw shade and say, well, Candiace made it about herself. Girl, that wasn't the tune that you were singing in the car. Don't be weird and don't be fake. And then Giselle, not even having been there, like you don't even know what's going on. You haven't gotten the story because you're hearing it from Goofy Mia, and Robyn is crying. She can't even tell you anything, so you have no idea what has even occurred. But you're taking such a strong stance on something that you know absolutely nothing about. And she's like, "Well, Candiace is not a good friend, and like the way that she treated Robyn is the way that she would treat an enemy." And I guess she asked Robyn like she never apologized, and I'm like, apologize for what? Like what the hell are y'all talking about? And this is what I was alluding to earlier. It just befuddles the hell out of me that it's supposed to be Candiace's issue that Robyn is upset about this whole job thing. Like, girl, what? Nobody ever would have said anything if not for Robyn. And even in the car, because Giselle's making a big deal that I guess, Candiace in some type of la la land, Candiace could have apologized to Robyn for making that statement about the job thing, I guess, because it really bothered her. And Giselle feels some type of way that, Candiace was more so doubling down on it. But my whole thing is, if I'm sitting in a car with you and you're crying, boohoo crying, I don't even rock with you like that, and I'm trying to comfort you. And while I'm comforting you, somebody that you have been disgusting to, you have the nerve to say in my face, y'all treating me like a villain. I've never done anything to y'all, and I don't know why y'all coming after my man because he's never done anything to y'all. Girl, I'm gonna put you on correct. Like, I'm going to let you know. I guess if I'm doubling down, I'm going to let you know you're in the wrong. Like, what are you talking about? There are no apologies to be given from me. And that's why Mia's narrative makes absolutely no sense, talking about Candiace made it about herself. No, Robyn made it about Candiace. She put Candiace on the defense because she was spewing foolishness. So what, Candiace is not supposed to respond? Like, I'm confused. So since Robyn is just so upset, baby, she runs outside. She just keeps saying that, like, I want to be alone. I want to be alone. Of all people, Mia runs after her. And Wendy is asking the questions that we all want to know. Like, girl, why are you going outside? She's like, she wants to be involved so bad. And I'm just like, yeah, like, girl, nobody is even checking for you, Mia. Like, stop trying to be a part of this friend group so bad with Giselle and Robyn. Like, girl, they're not even thinking about you. Giselle just talked about you. She just said that you and your man were embezzling at last reunion. Like, where's your memory? I like that Candiace is, because she was very upset, and Wendy was trying to calm her down. She's like, you know what this is? I wish I would have known, like, heard the context of that conversation. But while they're talking about it, I like that Candiace just kind of realized, because I hate that she has, it sounds bad to say, but I hate that she has so much empathy for Robyn, because it's like, girl, like, it just seems like Candiace wants to have this emotional tie to Robyn and feel bad for her and be friends with her, but Robyn is an asshole. So it's kind of like, let it go, Elsa. So, I like that she is reaching this impasse and realizing, like, Robyn aside specifically, I can't be friends with somebody that's friends with Giselle. Like, you can't possibly trust somebody and have a real honest relationship with somebody that is friends with Giselle and that deals with Giselle and lets Giselle be Giselle. Like, there's no way that I can have a relationship with you. I feel like that made the most sense to me. And Karen, who is always on that fence, honey, riding that fence, she kind of alludes to some manipulation, but she doesn't really say anything. And Wendy says there's definitely manipulation going on in the group. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like Robyn is trying to weaponize these feelings that she all of a sudden has come up with against Candiace and act like Candiace did something to her, and girl, she didn't. But then Aneka, who I'm just not really understanding her purpose. She's saying, well, Wendy is manipulating Candiace. Candiace can't do anything without Wendy's influence. And it's like, you don't know anything. You just got here. And that statement makes absolutely no sense. Like, please shut up. They get outside and they're still talking about it. This is Candace and somebody else, but this is Candace. And she's basically saying, I'm not going to have a conversation about this legal thing because obviously the person that's suing me, they're still married to Ashley, and Ashley's sitting in there like, girl, I'm not going to have that conversation. And again, even if this is doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down, girl, I'm standing on it. Robyn should not have made that comment about the legal thing. And I love that Karen was in her confessional. She's like, honestly, Candace said what everybody was thinking. I'm like, okay, well, that's an interesting tidbit because when Robyn said it, I was thinking like, but I just didn't really think too much into it because I just didn't too much care. But I think that it is an interesting point to think like, well, girl, he lost his job and y'all are trying to act like, oh, well, he lost his job at no fault of us. That's just a weird mindset to have at the end of the day. And I think it's just a very simple point to say, yes, girl, like you just shouldn't have said that. And it could or could not have contributed to him losing his job. But like, we get that you're in denial about everything as it pertains to wine, but you're going to have to wake up as it pertains to something. Why? Is it our business technically? No. But we have to listen to you talk about it. So we're going to have to correct these facts. Like, it's just kind of necessary. Nobody wants to hear nonsense. And Karen is kind of saying, like, emotions are high and, we're all human and we all tend to get into our feelings. So I'm sure she was just trying to explain, like, that's probably what's contributing to what's going on right now because there was a ton of crying and it was just a lot going on. And I like that Candace then got a chance to just kind of explain it on the episode because I was just, like I said, it was so many questions of, like, why is Candace crying? Which, again, I think is just such a dumb question. I'm glad that she got to put words to it in this episode and we don't have to wait for like a reunion to have a really dumb conversation. And she's just like, listen, at the end of the day, I'm glad that Robyn is in her feelings because she never shows emotion. And now that she's showing emotion and that's somebody that I was supposed to be friends with, that made me emotional. And I'm like, obviously, but thank you so much for explaining that to the people in the back because yeah. So they finally move on. That was though like the first 30 minutes of the episode, and so I'm like, okay, like I'm not mad at it was like 20 minutes if I remember correctly. I'm not mad at the amount of time that it got because I do feel like we got a lot in there. However, I was like, okay, now what? Because it was just a lot going on in that 20 minutes and that's a long time. So now I'm like, okay, so now what? So we're turning the corner in some type of aspects and now we're talking about Karen's birthday, which I just hadn't really paid too much attention to the fact that it was her birthday or that it was coming up. And I'm like, dang, it's always a lot of BS going on around Karen's birthday. Thinking back to the Miami trip last year. So they talk about that quite a bit. And we know that Karen talks about her birthday a lot, but I get it because she's a tourist like myself. We just love to talk about ourselves and our birthdays. It just kind of is what it is. And I looked up her birthday is on May 3rd. Mine is on May 10th. So, aside from that, you'll get the theme of the rest of this review is what else is happening in this episode. And also, you can literally go look at my Twitter. I was going in on Twitter today. I just had so many thoughts. But the theme is, like, what's going on? So, we talk about Karen's birthday. Great. And then I noticed that we were getting a ton of solo hotel room scenes of Aneka. The one with the hair was very entertaining to me because she was asking, is it giving bone straight? And it absolutely the hell was not. Even during that pause where she was waiting for the response from whoever the hell she was talking to, I said, girl, absolutely the hell not. And I loved that person said, girl, absolutely the hell not. And I thought it was interesting too. This is probably just for like the African American viewers here. But I thought it was interesting too that she was saying like girls giving braiding hair. I was wondering if she was joking because I think we know like the word like kinky that she was using and like braiding hair, that has to do with the texture. And it's like, so that texture of hair I don't imagine can necessarily get bone straight. So I really was just thinking like, because that's just really how much was not going on in the rest of the episode. I really just thinking like, does this lady having a kinky texture of hair and she's expecting for it to get bone straight? Is that really the issue? But that's just something I was wondering. But yeah, as we continue to get, these scenes throughout the episode of Aneka doing interesting things and saying interesting things and trying to flat iron kinky hair, I was wondering, why is she here? Not in a rude way or anything, not like a fire her thing or anything. I really don't feel like that, and I'm not going to say that. I made like a couple tweets that say that because they are humorous, but I'm not going to say that. But I genuinely would like to know why is she here? Like what is she going to do? On our next step of like, okay, so what else is happening in this season, in this episode? They're kayaking or whatever the hell, which they did for a very long time to fill up some time. And Giselle and Robyn are talking about the situation again with Candiace. And again, we get, listen, shout out to Aaron. I love me some Aaron, but like, how many times are we going to get this Robyn is a fraud clip? Like, how many times are they gonna play that? Like, it's getting exhausting. And because for about 20 minutes now, I just had no notes to really write because there was nothing happening. But Robyn did say something interesting where she was like, basically because they played the Aaron clip, and they said, she said Candiace was cyberbullying her, and I'm like, listen, I very rarely see any positive things said about Robyn on the internet. So I don't know why she feels like Candiace is doing something to her. Like Candiace is the one that's leading the charge, I guess. But I mean, Robyn may want to like hashtag RHOP on Twitter and see what comes up. I think honestly, if that's her stance, that it's Candiace that's cyberbullying her, I think that she will be quite surprised by what she sees. This part really just kind of pissed me the hell off. So now Giselle is in Karen's room. She brings Karen like some birthday stuff, which obviously came from like the mini bar section of the hotel, because I'm like, what is this mini bottle of champagne that you getting me for my birthday, and then this pack of M&Ms and this Snickers? But okay, girl. And then she attempts to have a substantive conversation because Giselle's not really good at having substance, and she's letting. My whole thing was she was picking up because she had nothing really to be able to say about Candiace, but now that this thing with Candiace and Robyn has happened, she can latch on to this issue that's happening with Robyn and use that as ammunition to have a problem with Candiace. Because it's always a thing where you have to grasp at straws to kind of piece together like, oh, why am I mad at Candiace now? Because she has no reason to be. So we're doing that. And then she also says that, basically she notices that Karen is trying to, bring the group together and mend things. But as it pertains to Candiace, there's no moving forward for her. She specified, for me, there's no moving forward. And here's the reason why that she pulled out of her. She says the things that Candiace was saying last season about, basically, she characterized it as, Candiace said that she treats people with darker skin tones differently, essentially is what she was saying. She says because of that, she received hundreds of death threats, and so she can't move forward with Candiace. Let's break that all the way to hell down. Because even the clip that they showed of Candiace telling her, you use your light skin privilege or whatever, that's a totally different argument from the colorism thing, first of all. So let's talk about both. The light skin privilege thing, I definitely 100% feel like light-skinned people in African American community can have privilege in certain areas. I'm a light-skinned person at the end of the day, so I just feel like that's an argument that can go for anybody. It didn't just have anything to do with Giselle. So I'm just like, Giselle, you like definitely seem like you get privilege from that network and from whoever's running that show and from the editors. Like, you give absolutely nothing to the show. You're never held accountable for anything. You do nothing. You talk about nothing. And you still are like hoisted up as the face of this show. So you definitely get privilege in that sense. So is that Candiace's fault that she spoke to the truth of that? Hell no. Moving forward on the colorism thing, the audience was screaming, audience and the viewers were screaming colorism before it was even brought up on this show. A season before it was even brought up on this show. It was a godsend that anybody even said the word colorism on that cast, because it was just like, is anybody awake? Like, are we going to talk about real things? And so people were feeling that across all avenues at the end of the day. And even if you're not a colorist, the way that it was brought up, it seems like the energy is different with the brown skinned girls than it is with the light skinned girls. That's it. So again, and that you can kind of see that as well, right? Prime example, Ashley versus Candiace. Ashley was on this show before Candiace was on this show. Ashley was a tyrant on this show way before Candiace even popped up on this show. Ashley was provoking people as soon as we met her. Candiace, in my opinion, she definitely gets rah 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 da 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 da, but I feel like it's always in response. She's just not a great responder to things because she's very emotional and people just don't like her mouth. Whereas Ashley has always been a mess, and her feet have never been held to the fire until recently because the colorism comment was brought up. Her feet have never been held to the fire the way that Candiace's have. I mean, the proof is just in the pudding. So my whole thing is the light skin privilege thing, it has merit, generally and specifically as it pertains to Giselle. The colorism thing, it has merit, generally, and I won't say specifically because I'm not going to say that anybody on the show is a colorist, but I don't think that they are very self-aware, especially Giselle. She's not a self-aware person. And so the message is just, hey girl, sometimes you do weird stuff that makes you look like a colorist. That was only ever the conversation. Even last reunion where they had that really bad conversation about it, really didn't go too far. It was prefaced by saying, we don't think anybody on this cast is a colorist. That's the first thing that they said. So for Giselle to take that and make that a personal attack, like Candiace made a personal attack on her, and as a result, now she's receiving death threats. Everything that Candiace said, similar to what Karen just told us, everything that Candiace has said is what everybody else has been feeling. So in sum, now that I've explained that, and I hope that it made perfect sense, Giselle, you can shut the hell up. But what I really didn't like about this conversation is I feel like Karen, she teetered on that line because she did say, if you're listening to her language, she did say, well, I had to deal with the colorist, conversation as well. Because, right, Karen is a light-skinned person as well. So if anybody brings up light-skin privilege and colorism, yes, Karen has to answer to that as well. The thing is, though, do you just take it as a note? It may not apply to you. If it don't apply, let it fly. But do you take it as a note and just acknowledge, like, okay, that is possible. Those are your feelings. This could be happening. Or do you get defensive, right? There are different ways to handle it. And Giselle got defensive, and she took it personally. So that only makes you look more guilty. And I don't love that Karen didn't just say, hey, girl, just consider that there may be some issues with this. At the end of the day, like, that's all you have to do is have some consideration at the very least. I feel like she should have taken that opportunity to hold Giselle accountable and not let Giselle act like somebody did something to her. There's a way to say, like, oh, it is unfortunate that you're receiving death threats and you shouldn't, but then she should have went even further to say, but that's not Candiace's fault. People were feeling that way before Candiace said anything about it. Candiace was just a whistleblower. Moving on to, what else is happening in this episode. I did think that the birthday wishes to Karen in the confessional were very cute. I do also think that we only had time to do that because there was nothing else to show in this episode. My next note literally says, second half of episode, nothing's happening. So in that thought, I'm sitting here not watching the episode, but I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, it's so crazy that for seasons on seasons on seasons on seasons on end, probably at the moment that Candiace put her big toe on the Bravo soundstage, they were saying, oh, Candiace plays victim, Candiace plays victim, Candiace plays victim. And it's like, but Giselle and ROBYN are queen victims this season. That table had just spun on around, hadn't it? Like, that's crazy. Like, is anybody paying attention to that? Like, and we know they're not paying attention because they have no self-awareness. But it's like, y'all are always talking about how somebody else is playing the victim. But look at what you're doing. Something that you self-inflicted, both Giselle and ROBYN. Now, oh my God, look what Candiace did to me. Girl, what? I did think it was interesting hearing Karen talk about the fact that she bought her grandmother's home and she's going to, turn that into like a bed and breakfast, I guess, for more tourism in Surrey County. I think that that's interesting. The last part of the episode, though, this is where I won't say that I had any sympathy for ROBYN or empathy for ROBYN, but I will say that I got some context. Like I had a little bit more understanding. And basically she's calling, I'm just understanding that Robyn is stifled emotionally. I'm understanding that. And you have to see it from all sides, right? In this group, she doesn't open up to the group, so who does she really run to? Then she has Giselle. That's not somebody that I imagine that you have a deep substantive conversation with where anything is resolved, right? Like there's no, because she's not necessarily a real thinking person. So I don't, and she has no self awareness. So how can she really give you advice about your situation when she doesn't really do well to digest her own bullshit? So that doesn't work either. Who can she run to? Part two. So then you would think, oh, maybe her spouse, but she's calling Juan, and every time, not even every time, I'll just stay on this topic. She's on the phone getting emotional, and you can hear her voice cracking like she's about to cry. He's known her for 5,000 years. I'm sure he knows when she's upset, and he's literally calling her emotional and saying, "This is what gets me upset." We're not talking about you being upset, Juan. You always upset. Anybody ask you about that? And he's like, you're letting them get you. He's like, you're letting them get you emotional, and you're feeding into it. Like that's what bothers me. Like I don't even want to talk about this anymore. And it's like, and every time she tried to cut in and explain herself, like all she was trying to do was vent. At the end of the day, like you're supposed to be her partner. She's just trying to vent and explain to you what happened. You don't even know that she spent the time sitting on the corner crying like she was Monica. So it's just like, baby, you don't even know the extent of it. And this lady is literally just trying. She had just gotten into the story, and you're screaming and hollering over this phone, telling her that she's emotional. And you don't want to hear it. I think that's insane. So that gave me more understanding as to why Robyn's rationale is so off, because she's so stifled emotionally and she's not able to have productive, adult, emotional, vulnerable conversations with people because she has no outlets. So that's why she's so messed up. And that sucks, but that's kind of up to her to change her surroundings, like at the end of the day. So that's kind of all I had. The episode, I don't, like I said, like, and I kind of predicted that. That's kind of why I started watching it the way that I was watching it for the second half, because after we had 20 minutes of that whole thing at the chicken thing, I just felt like I knew there couldn't be anything else. And there wasn't. And then even when, because I didn't even watch the mid-season trailer when it dropped, whatever day it is. So now they're playing it on the episode, and I'm like, okay, I can watch it now because I'm sitting here. Nothing. Like, I also felt like in the mid-season trailer, they were still, sure, you have a storyline. This is going to be a through line for the season. Sure. But I don't know about anybody else. But when I was watching the mid-season trailer and I'm hearing nuggets, I just felt like I was hearing the same conversations that I had already heard in the first half of the season. So I don't know that anything's being pushed forward. It seems like it's all been said and done. Like I don't know what else there could possibly be. I could be wrong, of course, because I haven't seen it. It's yet to be seen. But for me, the mid-season trailer was pretty dry. I literally wrote on my notes, mid-season trailer looked dumb. It just didn't. It just didn't. So I don't know. I don't know. I I don't know. Why is Aneka here? But whatever. We'll see, y'all. We get a little bit of a break, thank God. So, if you celebrate Christmas or, whatever holidays you guys are gonna be celebrating, if any, enjoy your holidays and pray for the Real Housewives of Potomac, baby. Or go on Twitter. It's very entertaining. That was actually fun. If you didn't really enjoy the episode, which wasn't much to enjoy, go on Twitter and have a cackle. That's my advice to y'all. And I will see y'all when we get back.